Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. I am so excited to get to talk to a homie from the ways, a badass with the heart of gold, a seer into the underpinnings of the fabric stretched across the veil of reality, an experiencer of high strangeness, a warrior for the light, and a bastion of Zen peacefulness incarnate. Jeff Marshall, welcome to Rogue Ways.
Thank you very much.
So good to have you here. And first, I wanted to tell people that Rogue Ways is now part of the Eyes Open network. This new collective of creators is comprised of myself, Benjamin Balderson of Odin's Alchemy, Claude Furry of Talking Nonsense, Steve Poikonen of Slow News Day, and Brad Tracy of JFK to 9/11. These incredible creators will get together at least once a month to deliver a State of the Union roundtable squawkorama. You can expect wacky antics, topical, philosophical wanderings, and nearly illegal amounts of fun. This content will only be available for Patreon members of Rogue Ways. So go to www.patreon.com/rogueways right now to subscribe. And in classic Rogue Ways fashion, we're going to start with our pointless question of the episode. So Jeff, I'm wondering if you think that the U.S. is being maneuvered into a civil war.
Sort of, but I think they just want us to think that we're being maneuvered into a civil war because those tensions have been there for a long time, at least a decade. Long before our current president ever got in. He's the one taking all the heat for it right now, but these things have been there for a while. So.
Are you talking about the racial tensions or other tensions?
Yeah, all of them. All of them.
Yeah.
Getting away for all. Everything's Trump's fault, and I mean whatever. But I kind of feel like the point is to get us to act like it's going to be a thing. And I think once they get us to act like it's going to be a thing, then it doesn't even have to be a thing because we're already acting like it's going to be a thing. So like if we're all on edge, like, oh, civil war is coming. I mean, I've been hearing this for like 15 years, like, oh, there's going to be some kind of crazy civil war, race war, whatever. Until it happens, I'll just hang out.
Yeah, just chill. That's what I always think about all these things when people are like, there's Nazis punching people in the streets. And I'm like, where?
Like, I looked out my window. I didn't see a single Nazi.
I didn't see them. Yeah. I don't see anyone talking about civil war. I see celebrities talking about like bombing the White House and like violently overthrowing the government. And I've never heard that before, but that just seems like an extension of the same sort of media barrage of this message that's coming. The civil war is coming.
We're just going to keep poking them.
Yeah.
Scared, whatever. Freak out. Like, I'm not gonna. You do what you tell me. I'm not gonna do it. So.
Right. Yeah, and all you have to do to prevent a civil war is not join it.
Right. Do not engage.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I like that meme where it's like something it's like a stick figure in an Uncle Sam hat, and it's got like a stick, and it's poking the little elephant and donkey, and it's like, do a civil war.
Yeah. So.
All right. So I want to ask you, I've actually been wanting to interview you for a long time because every time you're on the show, you drop little hints of like the fascinating things that have happened in your life. And I mean, I know you're just a normal guy too, but that's part of what I love about this is that we get to remind people that everybody is just a person, just like a person living out their life, but that we also all have some, cool insights and experiences to share. So I was hoping you'd bring us back to like your earliest life and like what life was like for little Jeff.
Little Jeff. All right. So way back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, that's when I was born. Right. So my parents are from a little island nation called Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh, yeah.
I was born there and then brought over here as an infant. So I'm one of those dirty migrants everybody's worried about.
Oh,
right?
Wow. You are.
Yeah. But I've been here my entire life, basically.
So you have any memory of being there?
No, the first time I went back, I was already single-digit age, and this is when, I guess my parents thought they were going to separate. My mom just took me, and she left. So we went there. I just thought it was a really long summer vacation.
Over there.
Yeah, exactly. I was over there for like 6 or 7 months, and then we came back, and then I'd take trips every probably 2 or 3 years until probably the mid '80s, and then I haven't been back there since then, except for one kind of notorious cruise trip to Tobago, which is one of the smaller islands, part of the island nation. But that's a story for another day. That's a little weird thing that happened to me. But
yeah.
Do
you don't want to go back, or do you don't have family left there?
Circumstance, I ended up meeting my wife, getting married, and traveling everywhere but there. and just didn't work my way back to Trinidad. See my cousins. I had little cousins that I ran around and threw rocks with, and they have kids now, and it's just whole generations have gone on, and I kind of know nothing about. So
yeah. It's interesting. I don't know if you're like me, but I'm kind of like, once I've gone to a place, I'm like, well, why would I go back when I can go somewhere new that I've never been?
Yeah, it definitely has a lot to do with it. So, but one of the cool things I appreciated about that is, as a little kid, like I got to see enough of, because they're at the time they were kind of probably 20 to 30 years behind like the United States in things. So like when my dad would call my grandmom, she didn't have a phone. Only one person kind of in that neighborhood had a phone. So my grandmother had to go to this lady's house to take the call. So
wow.
And it was like super rural, so it was like seeing an era probably 30 or 40 years before I was ever born. I mean, my grandmother had chickens in her backyard that I used to harass, and just that kind of thing, and livestock. So I had a bit of the rural life, even though I grew up in the city. So
yeah, well, not just the rural, but like you got to see kind of how wealthy we are here.
Right. Yeah, definitely true.
Yeah. So did that give you did that kind of change the way that you interacted with the kids who had just grown up here and not known anything different?
Yeah, it totally did, because, a lot of times, especially nowadays, you hear people, like the whole sort of, not veganism so much, but there's people have a lot more food awareness now. And for a while, they were just sort of, whatever. Where does the meat come from? I don't know, the supermarket. I kind of always knew where the meat came from, because my aunt would tell me to go down to the parlor and go with your cousin to the parlor and pick up a chicken. And me not knowing, it's like, all right, let's go pick up a chicken, thinking it's going to be in the supermarket. And it wasn't in the supermarket.
Yeah.
Like, we want that chicken right there. And the lady at the parlor would be like, that one? Okay, that one. They'd go off with the head, put it in the defeathering thing, and they hand us the chicken. It's like, that's what we were eating that night. So kind of
fresh.
Yeah, super fresh. So I kind of always knew, I don't know, I guess I had an awareness of, a deeper level of reality.
Right. Because that's one of the ways that we are so disconnected from reality now, is that literally there's kids who don't even know where food comes from. They don't understand that animal could be in their belly sometime, right, or that plant is going to get like crushed up and put in the salad or whatever.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's interesting because it's easy to disconnect when you don't understand the pathway of things and the origin. You're like, like somebody's mad and irate about something, and it's almost like there are a lot of meat eaters who feel bad for animals and still eat meat. And it's like, but you understand where this meat came from? Do you understand this animal had to die? Do you know the process that happened? I mean, some people are okay with that,
Right.
Others just want to be righteous about it and don't really understand the whole process to it. So
yeah,
it's interesting for me to observe.
It is interesting too, because I don't know if this was for you, but like there was a lot of times that I didn't have like a choice. We didn't have a choice of what we were going to eat, because that was the food we had, and that was the only food we had. So there's some level of like, I hate using the word privilege now because it's so overused, but there is some level of privilege in being able to choose what your diet is. And it's cool if you can be more knowledgeable and more aware of how you're affecting the environment and the world around you and how it's affecting you. But there's also a level, I think, where it's like, you gotta kind of eat what is, there's something like snobby about of turning down food because it has something in it that you've said you wouldn't eat when you're in, especially if you're in someone else's home or something, you know? It's like, I totally get your convictions, but like that person worked and then prepared and then like cooked this for you and then offered it to you, and you should probably just eat it.
But the effort to present it to you was like way more than your misgivings about eating it,
Yeah.
That widow's mite story in the Bible about the whatever it was like people were giving. A rich man gave a bunch of money, and a poor woman gave like a penny, and everybody laughed at her. And it's like she gave more than all of you because she didn't have anything to give. And I kind of feel the same way about people who do that,
Mm-hmm.
I find that a lot of times they just go through all this effort because they really want to do something for you, and you look at it and you're like, oh God, it's going to kill me to eat this, but thank you very much.
Yes.
Funny.
Yeah.
But speaking of those early days and food and stuff, there was a lot of not having choices of what to eat. I ate the government cheese, went through all of that stuff as a little kid and everything.
Yeah.
It's like crazy. So a lot of stuff.
Are you like me then? And there's some part of you that like loves powdered milk and government cheese, like plastic cheese.
It's actually tasty. I didn't not like it. It was good.
I still want it sometimes, and I'm like weirded out by it. I'm like, I know that's really gross, but part of me loves it because it was my like comfort food.
Cheese, man. Holy crap.
Yeah. All right. So then how did you start going about like learning about the kind of broader world as you're getting older and realizing that it's not just your little town and your little way of life?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I know. I think like I've been plagued my entire life by just weird shit
Yeah.
that didn't let my brain settle into normalcy. So it's like also anybody who knows me for any period of time will find out I'm a huge like movie buff. So a lot of times I'll just speak in movie lines because that's what happened. That was my experience too. So it's like in the Matrix where Morpheus says it's like a splinter in your mind. That splinter has been in my mind since I was single digits because
Yeah.
nothing would ever be regular. I mean, I was a little kid who saw things. I like like they were regular things. So there were one time I recall there were what looked like Quakers, or I call them pilgrims, right? Like dancing on top of the radiator, doing a little pilgrim dance, and it'd disappear when they turn the light on, and they'd reappear when the light went off again, and they weren't
Oh, wow.
threatening. It was just like, oh, that's cool shit to see.
Yeah. Well, this is like you're like the third person I've talked to who has seen when they were a child little beings in their room at night, and it's weird to me. They're all different. The way you guys describe them, they look different. I've definitely never heard the pilgrim one before. But I'm just like, how many kids see shit and never say it or forget or something, and you remembered and maybe you kept seeing it. Did you keep having experiences like that even later?
Experiences like that, but not so much with the little pilgrim guys. Like I'd see an elephant in the bathroom, and it would be just like a regular occurrence for me. I'd go to the bathroom, I'd see the elephant in there, I'd close the door, come back out, and tell my parents I can't go in there because the elephant's in there.
He's using that right now.
Yeah, it's like the elephant's in there. Other times I remember I'd wake up to what I thought were skeletons around my bed, and that freaked me out. And I'd get up and run out, and my parents would be there, and I'm like, oh, there's skeletons inside of there. And they're like, okay, calm down. There's really no skeletons in there. But that was like a normal part of life for me. So.
Did your parents think that you were weird, or were they just like, oh, that's just kids and he's just seeing things or making things up, or like what was their response?
They kind of knew I was weird, yeah, because there were times when like my dad would share, like there was one time when I was younger that I think my cousin and her family moved in with us, and we only had at the time a small apartment in New York City, so we had divided the apartment up between like my uncle and aunt and their daughter, and me, my mom, dad, and me, and I'm not even sure my brother was born yet. My first brother was born yet, and so he was showing me something that I had drawn because when you're a little kid, little things can like disturb you. So I guess having this other family there freaked me out, and I assume I started drawing crazy pictures. And my dad looked at it and it's like, you see this? He shows me a picture in like a psychology book. You see this picture? And you see this picture you drew here? Yeah, we might have to get you some help or something. But I think they kind of knew that wasn't a normal, quote unquote normal.
Right. I always wonder too, like if there were some experiences that they shared with you. Like, do you remember anything where they seemed to like sense something or notice it too, but maybe, I don't know, did they maybe wouldn't even admit it or something like that?
I don't know. My parents were always real private about that stuff. They don't want to like make you think something. Well, yeah, make you think something about yourself. So
Right.
never really shared that. But I have this weird thing where for a long time I felt like I remembered almost everything that happened to me. Things been sketchy probably the last year or two, but I've been under a lot of crazy stress. And the whole world changed in the last 2 years for me. But up to that point, I mean, I literally sometimes will remember assignments I had at school on just some random day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good. It's ridiculous stuff.
Well, it's like the opposite of me because I forget things from like this morning or yesterday, and then, we're all like have a dream and forget if was that real or was that a dream. Like my memory and my past are all just a giant clump of weirdness, but that's an amazing amount of recall.
Yeah, at the ridiculous too, because I remember like, okay, for example, the speed of light in a vacuum. Like I know that, and I have no reason to know that fact. Who cares what the speed of light in a vacuum is?
Except if you have to take some like random test someday, they'll be like, he's a genius. He knows everything.
Oh, yeah, but I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, right?
Yeah. So is that gift ever like a curse too, that you remember something too well or too much?
No, it totally is because trauma, right? Everybody goes through some stuff, and I feel like I've been through enough. But it's one of those things where you kind of you heard of the frog boiling in the pot,
Yeah,
sort of.
yeah.
So you don't know what's going on, so you're just there in it. And it's not until I look back on these things and be like, "Holy shit, that's a lot of stuff to happen to a person, to anybody, let alone a little kid or whatever, you know, going on
Right.
in life and all that." So yeah, like I wish I could just forget stuff. If I
Uh-huh.
would do it, I would totally. That movie that was something about the spotless mind.
Oh yeah, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Right, like I totally wish I could do that. Go somewhere and be like, "Hey, forget this, and that." Yeah,
Yeah. Do
totally do it.
you think though if you took that out that you would still be like a happy person who loves being Jeff?
Uh, probably, probably be happier because sometimes the recall, like the word remember, as you
Mhm.
break it down, it's like to put something back together, remember something. Because you can dismember something, take it apart, or you can remember it, which is put it back together again. So I feel like every time I remember stuff, it puts the whole thing back together again, and then you re-experience it.
That's
And
a really good point.
so it's almost like if it wasn't there, I feel like I might be better off. I don't know.
Because it's like when a lot of trauma, from what I understand it's like your brain kind of shatters the experience and scatters it around so that you're not really fully remembering it, but you're remembering little parts of it more often, which is like part of why it's really bad for you. But your your trauma is the opposite, where you remember it so detailed that you're like reliving it from time to
Right?
time.
Yeah. So
Ouch.
right.
So there's some early problems kind of I guess becoming like an adult and a whole person in our society, which maybe no one wants to do because it's a little bit sick and twisted. But what sorts of like major disillusionments did you kind of hit coming out into the world and society as a young adult?
Um, I think probably the first one that hit me, and might be the biggest one that hit me, was that whole sort of the American dream myth. And it's like we all kind of people close to my age, roughly, grew up in that generation. We're like, oh, one day you're gonna go out into the world and you're gonna buy a house and do this and do that and find a great job, and every world will be beautiful and perfect. And fuck that, it never was. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
lie. It's like by the time I got into the workforce, people were laid off and getting cut out, and it was just like, what? You struggle with it. You struggle with actual reality versus what you believe reality should be, and you keep playing the game and engaging, and it's like, this was bullshit. I tried to find this wherever I went, and it turned out to kind of be crap. So I think that was probably the first biggest one, and then second, I think it was the idea that uh, it sucks to even say it out loud, but nobody really has our best interests at heart.
Yes.
Society doesn't, the government doesn't, you know, everybody just wants a part of your mind.
Yeah.
It's like you look around and you think, man, this is horrible. Like whatever, this one stupid ad or this one other thing. It's like, shut up. You're just talking too much.
It's
Everybody
literally
wants-
like you're just like a little resource that's being like fought over and picked apart as you go
right?
through life.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's fighting for something from you, be it
Mhm.
attention, money, whatever. It's just,
And I don't know if you feel this way, but like sadly, I feel like because all of us kind of go through the same like traumatizing and conditioning and whatever, and then when we come out, on the other side, it's like a lot of people end up being really protective and defensive, and that causes them to also like kind of want a piece of you in a way, because they're like trying to like fend for themselves, and so they're like, well, maybe I can get this from you and like shore my own shit up, and it's not even intentional. Like I don't think people are like naturally out to get everyone each
right.
other, but I feel
Yeah,
like we create that in this society because of all that shit.
I get. I think I think that's part of what society builds is those kind of it replicates itself. You know what I mean? So if it's a model, it's going to try to imprint that model onto its little machinations, which we end up being, and we will mimic society in our own lives and with each other. It's like, what can you give me? Do this, whatever. Just,
Yeah, do a civil war.
right. War. They even had a movie, Captain America: Civil War.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. That was some really heavy programming there.
Right. Exactly.
That's crazy. Yeah, those are some pretty big disillusionments too. And I feel like that American Dream one, that's like the part of the reason it hurts so bad is that you're like, no, I'm trying really hard and I'm doing all the right things. And like, yeah, I was told that if I was good and I made all the right choices, like this would work out. And life is like, nope,
Yeah,
fuck yourself. You're like, shit.
no, whatever you thought, you were wrong.
There's no safety in
Yeah.
reality.
Oh, God.
All right. So then, what kind of, like, as you're then like moving past that and trying to like, okay, I still have to like live in the world, and you're like wandering on, what kind of were the biggest like frustrations that you have to face
Oh
in
man,
that?
biggest frustrations are mm, just sheer like there's no escape from the programming. In order to escape the programming, you almost have to completely disengage and unplug from almost everything. And if you want to have a life, it's almost like you can't. It's almost like you can't really completely disengage. There's almost no way to partially engage.
Yeah.
You have to either stay engaged or live like a hermit out in the woods or something, or with some kind of weirdo hillbilly clan, which I'm okay with at this point. But
Yeah. Kind of want that at this point.
yeah, exactly. That to me has been kind of one of the biggest hindrances because the programming is so it's ever present. And once you peel those layers off that little onion and you start seeing the programming for what it is, it's like, holy shit, literally can't escape it. You listen to a radio ad will come on and bark at you about something, or a TV ad. Like I will literally just mute things because I don't want to hear it. If I can mute the video too, I would turn that off as well. But
Yeah.
it's just a ridiculous amount. It's crazy. I think
Yeah.
too, once you start to be aware of the fact that like your subconscious mind has no sense of humor and it has no filter. So whatever's getting in is getting in. So you're like singing along to some song that's on the radio, and you don't realize that there. Okay, so there's a band called 3 Days Grace. Love the band, love the song too. They have a song called "I Hate Everything About You." It's a cool song. I'm singing along to it, and I'm like, "Fuck that! Why am I singing that over and over again? I hate everything about you." It's like it's a horrible thing to feed into your brain, but until you become aware that that's even a potentiality, you just go along with it.
Yeah, because it sounds catchy and it makes you like feel immediately kind of like some sort of goodness or response. But in reality, it's like you're hearing that someone hates everything about you, and you're telling the world that you hate everything about it, and you're telling yourself you hate everything about yourself.
Exactly. And God forbid you're in a relationship with someone, I hate everything about you too. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
there's nothing positive about it. So it's like it's almost like once that's shown to you, you can't unsee it. So now everything you hear, your ears perk up. It's like, wait, let me listen to this a little bit better and see if this is something I should be feeding myself with or not. And damn it, like 70% of the time, it's not.
Yes.
You're not feeding that crap into yourself. So
Well, and then that level that you've brought yourself to is like now you're in a constant, you constantly have to kind of watch because you become more and more aware of that, like you're saying, that the ads are everywhere, the songs are everywhere, and you're starting to realize like how it can be affecting you subconsciously. So now you're in a constant state of awareness of that, and that's exhausting.
it is, yeah, mentally, totally.
Yeah, that's one of my frustrations as well. Like every moment of every day, you kind of have to be like on your game and like intentionally creating your surroundings in a way that is the best you can get, which is probably not the greatest,
Right.
unfortunately, but it's at least the best you can make it. So what is it then through all of this like frustration and the disillusionments that you kind of come up against? What is it that kind of sustains you and keeps you going?
I think it's curiosity. Just want to keep digging, just want to keep finding stuff out. Like I was always a super nerd kid, and I just want to learn more. Like, those old stupid ads, like the more you know. It's like, so that was me. I was like, literally, oh, I want to know that. I heard a thing years ago that said that was almost like a dopamine spike in your brain, like learning new things.
Yeah.
That so some people can actually get addicted to learning. That's how you have some perpetual students that are always they're always in school in some way. But I don't really see anything wrong with that because a person should learn. You should never assume that you know everything about anything at all.
Totally.
So that's been kind of my experience. That's the thing that keeps driving me. And I almost feel though like it's getting to a point where with the concept of the sort of the matrix and the what do you call that? Simulated world.
Simulation, yeah.
Simulation theory, that it's like also the observer effect, right? So the more something becomes when you observe it. So the deeper hole we dig, the deeper the hole will get. And it's almost like, well, at some point you might get tired of playing that game and just accept everything for what it is. And I feel like that point is like right over the next hill, maybe.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
Right. That's what keeps pushing you towards the next hill.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, but then what about that hill?
Yeah, right. Like, okay. So you never really quite just settled in, like, okay, this is a good hill to be on. Just always looking around. Like,
yeah.
Ooh, there's something interesting. Let's go check that out. So.
See, I wish, because I think I'm like with you that there's nothing bad about that eternal curiosity. And in fact, I feel like if we knew how to create that, that would be the best thing we could maybe like give people. Because I think part of what bothers me about a lot of society right now is I feel like no one seems very curious about anything. No one's asking any questions. They're like, I've come to the truth and this is it. And I'm sticking to it. And I'm going to fight anyone who doesn't agree with me. And it's like, you have no wonder in you. You have nothing that you're like, I mean, how could you know everything?
I think
ever.
I think, and this is just my own little pet theory, I think that the knowledge feeds the ego. So it's easy to get to that point where you're like, oh, well, I know more than you do. So obviously I know better, and obviously what I know is real and what you know is bullshit. So clearly I'm better than you, and I'm just going to act that way. So you got to be a little self-aware to even recognize that effect in yourself, and say that, oh, maybe what you think you don't know, or facts change. Truth is sometimes subjective, so is reality. So there's always multiple sides to a story.
And there's like that idea that there's always going to be, it's like everyone you meet knows more about something than you do.
Right.
Like even if you could be like, oh, I know more than you about that, but it's like they know more than you about something too. And like you're saying, there's also that subjectivity. So like you might know more about it than them, but they might have a point of view about it that you didn't consider. Like this woman asked me to come to her classroom today to help her with something. When I got there, I was like, I've never seen this. I don't even know what it is. But I mean, are they asking you this? And that question was like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. And then that like propelled her to go find the correct answer. So like, even though I had no idea what was going on, just that like slightly different perspective on it was helpful. Everybody
is everything. Sorry, that's all I was just saying. I think that perspective is everything, because a lot of times you even look at something that seems cut and dry, right? Like say, like, oh, did OJ murder his wife? Big controversy. I don't know if he did or didn't. The jury found that he didn't, but maybe he did. Who knows what actually happened between these three people? You know what I mean? So it's easy to say, oh, this little bastard killer got off. Clearly he did it and he's guilty. Maybe he is. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. So it's real difficult to say.
And like, not to be too bizarrist or solipsist or whatever, but like maybe an interdimensional creature came out and like possessed someone and like something like we really don't know what happened.
How do you know the day before, like, Nicole didn't leave a note or something saying, I hate you, you son of a bitch, blah, blah, blah. Who knows what goes through people's heads and what people do? I think that's probably one of the things I learned about the most is the unpredictability of people. Like, no idea what somebody's going to do until they do it. It's easy to make those snap judgments when you're not in the situation.
Yeah. And I think part of that too is that subjectivity thing, right? Like I think we tend to like, we'll meet someone and we're like, oh, I understand them. I get them. And it's like, you've known them for months or maybe a year even, but like, even then you've known them for that one little bit of time. And probably most of your interactions with them, you're interpreting from your point of view. So you're like projecting your ideas about their motivations and their whatever onto them. It's like, it's going to take you a while to really, really know somebody. And so, how can you understand, anything but your own perspective most of the time, most of your life?
Totally. And that's what always gets me about, especially media stuff, they'll feed you opinions. They'll tell you what you need to think and what you're supposed to think. And I don't like that. And sometimes it's cut and dry. Or it seems like it should be cut and dry, but I don't know because I wasn't there. So
it'd be cool. Like I like both opinion, editorial sort of stuff and just fact-based stuff. Like I wish that it was more clearly defined and categorized so that people who were less kind of observant might at least be able to know, like, oh, right now I'm just getting someone's opinion. Oh, okay, now it's time for just some facts. Like, here's the difference between those two things. And I don't remember at what point in my teaching I came across this, but there was a time where I realized that for a lot of kids, they have a hard time distinguishing between fact and opinion. And I kind of wonder, like, if how many people there are that never really grow out of that inability to distinguish, you know?
Yeah,
Maybe you never hit that developmental marker.
Yeah, if you're never challenged on it, why would you bother to think any different?
Right. Yeah. So maybe we kind of touched, I don't think we really did. We said our curiosity is what kind of keeps you going, but what would you say it is that you like truly love in life that keeps you thriving or moving forward?
Oh man, I think it's just in a way it's like discovering. I don't know what you'd call that, but to put a real fine point on it, it's like if I could go out and find Bigfoot, I would totally do that shit.
Yes.
Because just the idea of finding something that everybody's been looking for, so perks my ears up. You know, it's like, oh, what, you did this? So I think it's just the idea of discovering, even if it's discovering a new fact for myself or a new experience. Like, oh wow, like, you know, so like, take a simple example. Like, I know what an apple tastes like. I don't know what an apple tastes like to you.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be cool to know?
That would be so cool.
And so it's like even little ridiculous things like that drive me to know what a new experience would be like, or discovery of a new thing that I hadn't learned yet or figured out. So I think it's just the idea of discovering new things and new experiences that really just sort of keeps me tripping through the crap that you inevitably encounter along the way.
Along the way, yeah. You have to drudge through that to get to those moments.
Yeah.
So like, is that more totally personally satisfaction sort of based, or is it like you want to then be able to like share that and be like, yeah, look, I found Bigfoot?
I would both.
Yeah.
But I feel like the things that I would really want to do, like find Bigfoot, for example, like, you know, the clearest picture, or not that I would want to go out in the woods and kill Bigfoot, but, you know, hey, here's a body. I actually have it. I think those kinds of things are probably too big and will not necessarily never be solved, but I think somebody already knows the truth and it's being purposefully suppressed. So,
Yeah.
or, you know, like the world's clearest UFO picture or whatever, or high def video of an alien landing wherever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's like too big of an idea. I think those things stay, or are supposed to, not supposed to, but they stay on the periphery in order to keep us all kind of guessing.
Yeah. I always wonder, like, where does the intentional suppression end and the sort of people's almost like their desire to not solve the mystery or not know or not be bothered to think about the universe in a more complex way? Like, where do those meet, you know? Because I also know there's some like active denial going on, because I feel like there are a lot of things you can point at and be like, here's some pretty clear evidence that there's some sort of weird aerial phenomenon or like abductions or whatever. And still people aren't convinced or aren't even looking at it. So there's some interplay there, you know?
Totally. I think too, like I don't know if you've ever, well, I'm sure you've encountered this story as a teacher, but how the natives would allegedly they couldn't see the ships because they just had no point of reference for ships that big. So even though Columbus was pointing out the ships right on, you know, off the shore, they're like, we have no idea what you're talking about. We don't see any ships there. In a way, even though it might be a bullshit story, it illustrates, I think, the fact that if you don't have a point of reference for something, you're never going to see it. So it's like those things that people are in active denial about. That's it. That's their point of view, and unless it gets purposefully shattered, they'll never see anything you present to them right there. You could pull up in their driveway and you know, whatever, the most high-tech trans-dimensional UFO craft you can think of, and they'll be like, I don't know what that is. I can't
know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I saw something, but I have no idea what it is. Like, push here and you can, yeah, whatever. It's not going to matter.
That's a really good point. And I get this sort of, I talked to someone else about the same thing earlier today, where you like, what's the point of really presenting something to someone if they're not already actively looking to find that which you're presenting? They're probably not going to take it in anyway. They're going to find a way to deny it, or they're going to ignore you, or they're not going to not have time, or whatever it is. Right. And it's the same kind of thing, right? Like if you don't have that point of reference, or you weren't out looking for it, then it doesn't exist, basically.
I think you just don't allow any space in your head for it, because I think humans just operate that way. Like we're
Yeah.
kind of, in a way, we're kind of programmed. So it's like anything that challenges that programming, probably the first 5 times will just be denied and not seen. It's almost like, again, feeds into the whole simulation theory where it's like, it really seems like programming, because it's like for the first X amount of times you'll just deny it even exists, but that 6th time or that 7th time it'll start to, a different subroutine will take over, and it'll be like, oh wow, okay, well maybe now I have to go look at something. Weird.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 things that makes me think of. And one, the programming thing, like I think we're literally programmed, like whether it's a simulation or we're like biological machines or whatever, because there's that, going back again to like indigenous peoples, and allegedly there's a study where they went to Africa, and some tribe, they were showing, they had like 30 colors, like shades of green, and then 1 brown. And they were like, which one's different? And they couldn't even see the brown or something. I'm probably not even describing it very well, but they didn't have words for brown. And so maybe I'm reversing it too, and they didn't have words for green, whatever. They literally couldn't see the one that was that color,
Right.
because they didn't have a word for it. So it's like, if you don't have the program installed, you can't even see or perceive the thing.
Right. Yeah.
And then the other thing that makes me think of is, you're saying like the subroutine will change, like however many times it takes to start to like alter that. And then all of a sudden that's the new program. That makes me think of how Rupert Sheldrake talks about morphogenetic fields.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of that, where they like can't grow a certain crystal, they can't make it or whatever, over and over again they've been trying, and all of a sudden somewhere in the world one lab does it, and now all of them can.
Yeah, totally. I love Rupert.
Yeah. So that gets back to that same idea that like there's something going on, we can affect it, but it's definitely constraining in various ways.
Yeah, totally. Even from my own personal experience, like grief, let's say. Okay, so I've had dogs. Right now, I can't say my last dog, because I'll probably get a dog after him. But at the peak, I had 3 dogs at a time. The last one's still hanging on here. He's like 15 and a half. Probably, I don't know, some years ago. So the first dog we got was a little beagle, right? And he was a little bastard. Like, honestly, he was the worst dog I've ever encountered. I mean, he bit me within the first hour of meeting him.
Maybe. Oh, God.
Yeah, my wife still has scars on her arm because he would bite and then just hang on.
Oh, God.
He was like, and I could go into some serious, like, weird ass stories about this dog too. But long story short, it was a terrible dog, right? So eventually, as all dogs do, he died, and I still wept like a baby, even though in the reality, I almost killed this dog myself at least twice. And, normally would not have shed a tear. I'm like, I'm glad he's gone, a little bastard.
Yeah.
But as he was dead, I was like, oh, shit. I'm like, why are my eyes leaking? What is this about? So to me, that was almost like my own experience of programming, where like, man, I don't really miss him, but why I'm crying because he's gone, It's a grief thing. So it's like the grief programming took over.
Yeah. You're like relieved that he's gone. You wanted him to go, but you still have that automatic response.
Yeah, totally. This guy, it was bad. I don't want to look like a person who hates dogs. This guy, somebody had come over to visit, hang out. The dog would walk up, piss on their leg.
What the fuck? He's just an asshole.
He was. He pissed on me in my own bed.
Oh, God.
A couple of times too. He ate my lunch once. Yeah, that was one of the things that almost like, I'm gonna murder you, dog. Because I got the doorbell and I come back and it's all gone. So within about 15, maybe 8 seconds, he scarfed the entire thing down.
Because he knew that was his window. He's like, I'm going to get it.
I'm like, you bastard.
What a bastard.
Yeah,
okay, now I kind of want to know the weird stories about him.
Okay. So I lived in this house probably late 90s, 98, 2000, thereabouts. Lived in a house outside of Atlanta. So North Atlanta has like a couple of different suburbs. One's on the east end, one's on the west end. So there was Marietta and Norcross. So this was in a little duplex in Marietta. And the dog one time, we used to keep him in a kennel during the daytime because he couldn't be trusted with anything. He escaped. He escaped the kennel, and that was a cage type kennel. He escaped the kennel, but his collar was still inside the kennel, and the door was still latched on the kennel. So I'm not really sure how he escaped. I don't know if
Right.
he crawled out of the top of the kennel or whatever. He crawled out of there and tried to eat his way out of the door. So he clawed up all the carpet and clawed up the door. But the interesting part about that particular story is that the dog was not, he was a beagle, right? And he was always really expressive. That's one way to put it. So he was a big wuss, essentially. The dog was a big wuss. But the dog clawed enough to where his fingernails bled.
Oh my
Blood
God.
all over the place. So I think there's something was wrong with that house, definitely, because I had another experience in that house too. There was another time where he threw up black shit, and I have no idea what it was. It's not like, I mean, we keep our dogs, these are house dogs. They sleep in our
Yeah.
bed. Not like
They're
that.
not out like eating random crap from the
Exactly.
dump or something.
From. But one of the probably best stories is during one of the times we were experiencing the weird shit in this place. This is when I was still kind of quasi Christian, kind of rogue now, but
Yeah.
pardon the pun.
Hey, you're always welcome to be rogue here.
Yeah, but so crazy shit was happening in this place, and my wife were doing like a prayer, right? Held hands and all that. Start praying. The second we start praying, the dog's going ape shit. He's barking like, "Ah," like super loud. But literally, the second we say amen, silent.
Whoa, that's the same house where he like clawed out of the cage and bled from his fingernails.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I these are the types of experiences that I've also had experiences where I feel like, and maybe this is not what you're saying, but this is what I'm projecting onto it, is that like entities will seem to come into an animal. The animal will suddenly be acting in ways that are totally uncharacteristic, and especially at times when it would seem like otherwise spiritually significant. So, do you feel like there was something like that? Like there was a negative entity there and it was affecting the dog?
Totally, but I'm not sure. I think the dog had a propensity for badness anyway, so
He was already on that side of things.
probably wouldn't have taken much. I used to call him so for old movie fans, I used to call the dog Captain Howdy. Dog's name was Toby, but I used to call him Captain Howdy. Captain Howdy came from The Exorcist. That was the spirit the little girl was talking to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I would call him Captain Howdy because he totally acted possessed at times. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this dog? He's insane.
Oh, so his name wasn't Captain Howdy, and then the shit happened. You called him that because...
Yeah, because
okay.
Stuff, yeah.
Because I also have this thing where I'm like, you shouldn't probably name your animals after like demons or like, things like that, because I feel like that is just asking for trouble.
It is. It's a little too risky. But this another great story about this house. So one of the since we're just talking about life journey stuff anyway, a huge incident happened in this house that caused me to kind of totally change my path, right? So get a little bourbon in me.
We get the juicy stuff now. Gotta loosen it up.
So there are two experiences. My wife had seen this thing. I guess it was a full body spirit. It was so present to her that she thought somebody was in the house, and she saw it probably minutes before I got home. So when I walked in the door, I opened the door. She's there with a literal piece of pipe in her hand. Like, I thought somebody was in the house, but she saw this motherfucker walk through the wall.
Whoa.
Look at her and then walk through the wall. I'm like, holy shit, that's weird,
He was like, look what I can do. And then walked through the wall.
Watch this shit. Like I was saying, weird shit is always happening to me. So I wasn't necessarily dismissive, but it didn't alarm me too much, So we had stuff kept happening, and so we'd both be asleep. I usually take longer to fall asleep, and she would like literally leap out of bed and talk about, you see there was a giant spider just hanging down. Like, you didn't see that shit? She would ask me, and I'm like, I'm still awake, and no, I didn't see anything. But it would freak me the fuck out, of course, because like, you're right next to somebody, and she's like, did you see that giant spider? I'm like, no, I didn't see a giant spider. But now I won't be sleeping for at least another couple hours.
Now I'm scared.
Right. So another time she saw like a head, a floating head. She said it looked like a shaman, a bunch of feathers and all this other stuff. So I don't know what the hell was going on, except for the day that I saw the spider. So I'm kind of laying in bed, and I'd jump up. I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I'm like yelling out Jesus' name and all this. And it looked to me like a kid drew a spider. If you can imagine that. This is a big cloud of black, and the arms out, and one of the front arms had a pincher, and just kind of pull the pincher like that. And I'm like, like totally freak out. But the point is that for the amount of weird shit that I've seen, my level of freak out was exponential. I should
Yeah.
not have freaked out the way I freaked out by seeing that, because I've seen weirder shit than that, and it didn't freak me out as much. But here's the oddest part about that story is, of course, I yelled. She woke up. She didn't see the spider. What she saw was a hooded figure come out of the darkness, look like it grabbed something, and then retreat back to the darkness.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So
So
that's like a whole level of like you guys maybe both saw the same entity, but it appeared to you in different ways
entirely
because of
possible. Yeah.
whatever. Like that was what was scarier to you, maybe, or who knows?
I don't know. It literally scared the crap out of me because I didn't, like a grown man, I slept the lights on for at least 2 weeks. Like I was
Yeah.
just scared to get up. I mean, just the level of fear was ridiculous. I had not felt anything like that up to that point.
Well, so do you think that I mean, I would think that part of your fear response then is that, you know, you hear this with different stories, like you even hear it with Bigfoot too, but Bigfoot or alien encounters or entity encounters that they're almost like it's like they're able to create and then like project onto you this experience of terror or sometimes calm, which is even more terrifying, like with the black-eyed children stories people have that they'll like see the black-eyed children become like very like almost like hypnotic or something. So do you think there's
Yeah.
something like that going on where it was like that's why it affected you more?
Now I do. Now I do. At the time, I had no idea what happened. So it's a full swan dive into weirdness to be like trying to figure out what this was, what just happened, literally.
Yeah.
Um, but crazy is that later on I find out that the spider thing is sometimes related to alien abductions, which feeds back in a bunch of other crazy shit that's happened to me. So it's like, oh, now I get it.
So
I think
I've never heard that with alien abductions. I would think of the spiders. I would think of like archons and even like black goo has some spider connections to it. But what's the connection with alien abduction?
just so they can use that as a mask sometimes, that people will see spiders and it would really turn out to be an alien encounter.
Sort of
Um,
like a screen memory idea.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Plus, the hooded figure thing is another one. And since she saw the hooded figure, I didn't see it at that time anyway. Was another thing that kind of fed into it. I also would have weird ass dreams in this house, but weird like sci-fi dreams. You know, so this is before, again, it's the early '90s, and I dreamt of dragonfly drones.
Of what?
Dragonfly drones
Oh,
that were
wow.
dragonflies like flying around, but they were, artificially made.
Yeah.
I had another dream of this like giant triangular craft, looked almost like one of the Star Destroyers for Star Wars. Just got like in the dream, I'm in the backyard looking out, and it lifts up and just takes off over my head. Um,
So
Stuff like
do you think that's like prophetic dreams happening, or do you think that possibly you were being abducted by aliens and they were like, "Look at our fancy toys. We've got drones. You're gonna get them soon too," or something?
I don't even know at this point.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't know anymore. Everything I thought I knew is gone now. Everything's been disassembled. I'm
See
still
that?
put it all back together in a way that makes sense. So
That's like I feel like part of the stages of sort of encountering these things is like at first you're like, oh, it's got to be like this, and then you learn more and you're like, maybe it's like this, and it just keeps like flowering out, and then by at some point you're like, I don't even fucking know how to make sense of any of this.
totally, like the abduction thing wasn't even anything I was really prepared to accept until somebody else told me about it. And I think I told the story before, but about just like a massage therapist, and she asked me, try to sort of soft open, be like, hey, what do you think about aliens? Just so she can ask me about the experience that she was sort of psychically receiving about me. And then I
Wow.
could bring that to her, like, oh shit, that really happened. So that threw me for another loop. And this was like last year. That's why I say the past 2 years have just been completely mind blowing and weird.
Because
So,
it got like shit's gotten even weirder in the past 2 years than it ever has been in your life.
yeah, actually, yeah, the weirdness definitely escalated. Definitely.
So
Yeah.
this is like a trend I'm noticing, and this is the first time I get to interview someone on the show about stuff like this, but I see it in other areas of my life that I feel like a lot of people who have experiences like this are saying the same sort of thing about escalation in the past handful of years. But do you want to share with us some of the escalating things, or?
Yeah, totally. So the abduction thing was one, and that was like a confirmation of something that I just played with in my head. It's like, abduction, come on, be serious,
Yeah.
And when somebody else tells me about it, it's like, oh, okay, so now I have to think about this as a real thing. What does that mean? Are actual aliens? I don't know what that. I'm still trying to figure that one out, trying to solve it. Another weirdness was this is all happened within the last 2 years. So woke up with Lyra constellation just the words Lyra constellation replaying in my head over and over again. I think I mentioned that before too. And that was
Right.
something when I went and looked it up, it's like all of a sudden, holy shit, you got Alex Collier talking about that was the origin of the human species from the Lyra constellation. And then actually one of the THC episodes lately was somebody talking about the Lyra constellation being encoded on the dollar bill.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that threw me for another loop. Also, for the last year, most of 2018, wife had real sort of health problems, heart problems, and all this other stuff, and so that's been a hell of a year for both of us. But before that, about 6 months before that, I was doing these little meditations at night. I'd have a little bit of herb.
Mhm.
It's like one little puff, and just to kind of chill out, mellow out, put some music on, and just meditate. Literally, just pull myself into that half sleep state, and I
Mhm.
would get these like crazy messages. Like I had to crazy enough for me to get up and have to write it down. Um, so one of them was about that I had to pull the goddess out of the ether, whatever that meant. You know,
Wow.
and that I had to somehow related specifically to my wife that I had to. It was almost like she was a character in a video game, and I had to build that character up in order to get to the next level. Also, that there was something about her heart that her heart couldn't take it, and,
Like,
and
couldn't take that process of getting to the next level, you think? Or like,
her vision was about the fact that she. So I always tease her that she's not all the way human, because she's like one of these people that is super exceptional.
yeah.
Like some of these people, like they literally give you the shirt off their back. She would actually probably do that and walk around in a bra. Like somebody needed my shirt, and I had to give it to him.
Yeah. Totally.
So she would do that, and I'd always tease her like, you're not even human. I don't know from what angelic realm you came from, but welcome to Earth. So it was it was related specifically to that whatever it was that was driving her couldn't take the, for lack of a better term, the bullshit that was happening in our world, and
Yeah.
that was kind of breaking her heart.
Yeah.
um but it was specifically related to her heart. Next thing you know, major heart problems and all this stuff. So
Wow.
that's a weird thing. What else? Oh man, hold on, I gotta look it up on my phone because this one was good. And this one I've only really shared with my brothers. But give me 1 second here because I woke up and wrote this down, and this was like way too freaking weird. But I'm sure Rogue audience would appreciate the weirdness of this.
Yeah. Well,
So
I love to, and I'll just take this moment while you're looking to say that I think when people don't meditate kind of frequently or have kind of experiences that are strange at least a couple times in their lives, I don't know if they understand when you're saying that you like get a message during meditation that it's not like the same as your normal thoughts and feelings. Like, you can tell the difference between what you would normally just kind of stumble across in your mind and this thing that like comes into your head. And it's like, where did that come from? Like, so
yeah, that's
I just wanted to reaffirm if anyone's wondering that I think experiences like that are
so
different. If you haven't experienced it, don't doubt it offhand that it can be that clear.
yeah. All of a sudden it's there, and it's like what's happening? Okay, so
Yeah.
all right. So there's one I know I shared on the website about the destructuring of time. I think that was specifically related to me. So this was back in July 2017, and I had it's almost like a vision of a giant mm, like a pocket watch, but it was made of stone, right? And it was laying on its side, and all of a sudden, about a billion cracks appeared in it. And the answer was that it was the destructuring of time, specifically on July 3rd, 2018. July 3rd came and went. Nothing really happened, but for me personally, it was like it was a rough time. Anyways, that's not the weird one I'm talking about. The weird one I'm talking about happened, I think that night or the next night. Anyway, what I actually wrote down is this. So the link has to be broken between the 2 points in your timeline, otherwise a loop is created that anchors you to the pain. This is the path to healing, also the source of their dark magic.
Whoa. This is like so random, but do you remember whatever episode it was where we were talking about oh shoot, I have the worst memory. I'm never going to remember. But my question for that whole episode was like, what happens if at the like point where it was almost like at the point where like time, oh, it was about the yugas. Like, is there a point where the yuga's about to start over and right at that point you could somehow like instead of moving on or going like backwards or whatever, you could just like break out of the whole thing and like shatter. Because there was a THC episode where someone was talking about like, you know, as we're going into a dark age, there's other etheric beings that are going into their kind of golden age, and they're like trying to send us the right information or the right timing. And this is what like synchronicities are. And that keeps us kind of going through the dark age. But then once we start on the other side going towards the golden age, they're going to start going into the dark age, and we have to start feeding them. And I'm like, well, this sounds like a bunch of fucking repetitive, pointless bullshit. Like, why don't we bust out of this and see what else is out there? And I wonder if that has any like connection to what you're talking about.
It might, but it's so amorphous that you know it could almost mean anything. I've been trying to figure it out myself, but I liked the last line where it's like the source of their dark magic. I'm like, who's dark magic? What are we talking about? You know, like travel or what? But for me, the interpretation was that when you go through trauma, it somehow causes anchor points in time. Those anchor points keep you looped back into experiencing it, and that obviously there has to be a way to break those anchors and get free of being anchored to that point in time that this traumatic thing happened.
Right. Because you kind of have to like go through life and try to almost go back and like heal that to become a more whole person.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I could see how that could connect in too. Oh, that's cool. I just watched oh my God, Dark City finally.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So when you're talking about like clock breaking and like time restructuring and like beings from Lyra and all this stuff, I'm just keep like seeing images from that movie where there's like what are they called? The bad guys?
Oh man, I can't remember, but the dudes.
I just watched it 2 days ago and I can't remember. But they're like the Men in Black, like alien fucking like parasite beings, and I'm just like picturing them coming in at night and like fucking with us and kind of restructuring things to make it like tick better or whatever.
Yeah, I knocked out that at this point.
Yeah.
Anything's on the table for me. You know, crazy. Somebody could tell me that gazelles were actually the creators of the world. I'm like, wow, it's like, what? It doesn't make sense. Tell me how. It's like, oh, it's a spiral on the horns, you see.
Yeah. It's totally like you can understand more and more where Douglas Adams was coming from. Like, the dolphins are actually the supreme beings of the planet, and they just take off.
Yeah. Thanks for all the fish, dude.
Yeah. So could there ever be anything that kind of transforms you into someone who just doesn't pursue truth or any of this stuff anymore, and you just like, you know, play video games and sit on the couch? Not that there's anything wrong with that, and not that you can't do both.
In Red Dead Redemption 2, for the record. Anyways.
Nice.
Yeah, totally. I almost feel like that every time. I'm like, okay, I'm good here. Yeah, and until I'm not anymore. And then it's like, what the hell was that about? And then I go find out about that. But I feel like in my guts, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, look, man, you'll never solve it. So disengage and just live and accept and experience and be joyful and whatever, hang out and just have fun, you know, because have fun and transform yourself.
Right. Well, that keeps me, but I come back to too, is like all you really can do is transform yourself, and all you really can do is like try to make the best of each moment as you go, because that's all that you have.
Yeah.
I love it. What is it that you think that other people could find in your story or in your experiences to sort of motivate them to see the importance of self-work or kind of moving down the path and progressing in life?
My story? Well, don't ignore the weird things. That's probably everybody, it seems. I can't say everybody because I haven't talked to everybody, but it seems that most of the people I've talked to have had weird shit happen to them. And most of them ignore it and they just dismiss it. They're like, oh, it's whatever it was. And it's like, don't dismiss it, because the weird shit is the real shit. You know, we live in an artificially constructed society, in an artificially constructed world. That's where the real experiences are. You know, that ghost knocking on your door that you like, whatever, it was just birds or something. It probably wasn't birds. That's probably what you need to pursue to really sort of dive in and understand, you know, the truer nature of reality rather than our artificially constructed one.
I like that. Truer.
Yeah.
Nice word choice. That's cool. So what do you think is the downfall for people who are kind of traveling down the weird path and looking at all those things that don't kind of fit the traditional understanding of the way things are?
I think there's probably a couple. One of them is definitely like loneliness, I guess, in a way. Because you're a little bit ostracized, you end up being the weird. If you're too vocal about it, it's like, oh, that's that weirdo that believes in Loch Ness monster or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, okay, but there's other stuff to it, not just that. So there's a little bit of that. I think there's probably a little ego could also be the downfall because again, you think your experiences are somehow magnified above somebody else. It's like, oh, you've never seen a whatever class 4 free roaming vapor. Yeah. Reference there, but you know, uh, those two are probably the biggest ones.
Yeah.
And, I think too. Ultimately, it becomes and this I think feeds into the loneliness too. The loneliness aspect of it is you come to a point where you almost can no longer engage with regular society because almost literally don't care about anything else that society is caring about. It's like, I don't care what the score in the football game was. I don't care what this is. I don't care who died on that soap opera. None of that shit is relevant to me right now. It's like, have you heard about this thing or that thing? But I mean, you could say that about anything. Some people get so engaged in politics that they don't care about anything else, or so engaged in whatever, history or dogs, babies, who knows?
It's true. It is true. I have both of those downfalls too. Like sometimes I feel really lonely. Sometimes I fall in that trap where I'm like, oh, fucking normies. And I kind of have ego about like, I see shit and all you're just blind or whatever. And then I'm like, oh, stop it. Like that's so ugly and unnecessary. Yeah. But I think it's hard. Like when you're trying to talk to somebody and they're like, did you see that commercial? And you're like, no. And they're like, did you see that show last night? And you're like, no. Right. And they're like, oh, well, nice weather, huh? And you're like, I don't know. The sky is covered in chemicals. So like, like, I don't know if we can have a conversation. And maybe I need to learn how to like, shut up and just say things that people like to hear or something. But sometimes I feel really like hard pressed to just engage with people.
I feel like that's almost necessary because you can't, I guess too, if you ever want to affect anyone else, you have to engage with them first. So if they're looking at you like a fucking alien, like you're just such a weirdo, I can't even talk to you, I'll just dismiss you off the bat. And you're like, oh, this is just a weirdo. But if you can engage on something, it doesn't have to be the one thing that they're uber passionate about,
It's true.
I've learned that. So
yeah. My best days, I can be like, I ask you questions about the things that you're talking about because you clearly like it and want to talk about it. And like, but it's very, the part that's tiring about that is then I'm like always the one like giving in every interaction and no one's ever asking me what I think about my chemtrails or whatever. I'm not really trying to be focused on chemtrails, but you know what I mean? Yeah. So it can get kind of exhausting and add to that feeling of loneliness too. So it's kind of like, there's like some kind of a balance you have to be able to strike.
There has to be somewhere. I don't know where it is though. But that exhausting, and that's true too, because a lot of times you'll try to bring up something that's so just clear and self-evident, and the person's just shut down.
Yep.
Shut down and completely dismissive, and it's like nobody wants to be just straight out dismissed. And it's like, oh, this thing I'm telling you is, you wouldn't even have to learn 50 things to see this. Just look at it and tell me that doesn't look weird to you. That that's not an unusual occurrence, or whatever. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's a good example. I have not really an aunt. It's like my wife's aunt, right? But this particular aunt is only a few years older than her, so it's almost like a cousin or something. Yeah. This was one of the successes, actually. So she's not the typical sort of conspiracy, quote unquote, awake person. But I got to showing her a video about the news, that how all these news stations ended up using the same script. And she was like blown away by that, and like literally never watched the news the same way after that. So that was a great success story. We didn't have to go down this long conspiracy path, starting to whenever and leading up to Roswell or whatever.
Yeah,
one video, and that was enough. But it was enough to engage her where she was.
Totally. That's a really good one. Yeah, you didn't have to go through like they're all the media is owned by these people and the CIA and Mockingbird. Like you can just be like, watch this.
Watch this one video, yeah, and tell me if you think this is weird or not.
Right, and it's a short video. You don't even have to be like, here, sit down and watch this documentary with me. You're like, here's this like 2-minute clip.
Yeah, totally.
That is cool. So what do you think? What are the ways that society in general is getting things like the most wrong?
Oh man, I think society in general is probably I don't think we'll ever get anything right. I think it's built wrong. It's built to guide and manipulate, and it can't do anything but that. So
That's like the main problem, is that people just can't be like, they can't even have like a free mind. And so how can we ever get anything right?
yeah, yeah. It's like, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. So as soon as anybody presents an alternative opinion or idea, it's like, oh, shut up. That's not what we think.
It's not how we think. That's not how we play. That's not what we do.
Exactly.
That's what I'm doing.
What you're thinking, it's just, I don't know. I feel like that's probably one of the whole. I mean, I guess society has its perks, somewhere.
Yeah.
We're all comfortable. Like, there's heat in my house right now, and it's 48 degrees outside. That's cool. I feel like that's probably a perk of society.
I can talk to you from across the country. That's cool.
Today, a couple of times. That's pretty handy thing to have. On the other hand, society is a thing that just, I feel like cattle. Every time I engage with society, it's like, oh, go down this path and only this path, and just, I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way. So I feel like there's almost there's no mental good that can come from it. It takes care of us physically, but not psychologically or spiritually.
Yeah.
It's the opposite. It wants to tear us apart psychologically and spiritually.
Yeah, and I would even say physically too. It's just like the illusion of physical comfort or health. It keeps us kind of locked in, but in reality, it's like most of our food is poisoned. The air is pretty well poisoned. The water is definitely poisoned. You know, it's like we're kept like just healthy enough to make it our 40 to 80 years or whatever, and then
in the system and to keep working. Right?
Yeah,
just enough to do that.
Just miserable enough to keep going. So then what do you think are some of the like trends, especially like right now in society, that are leading to the most suffering?
Kind of feel like, and I was just getting ready to post this too. I feel like the prison gates have been shut already. And that the world that's coming is something that a lot of us specifically won't want to be a part of. And I'm not sure how we're gonna deal with that. We might have to magic our way out of it, and not necessarily literally magic, although that might be part of what might be needed. But we're gonna have to outwit these mother truckers somehow, because I feel like I see it. I feel like I see the script already written, and I see these things already coming. There's like a shitstorm coming at us, and it's gonna suck for us. Some people will love it. They're gonna love the world that's coming, and but it's not for us. So I don't know what to do about that.
They're gonna love it because it's like so prescribed that they never have to question anything again.
Right. Yeah, and they've been, a lot of people like I think a lot of us are just built different, and a lot of things we won't accept, and a lot of ideas we'll just reject outright. And that may be part of the matrix as well. There may be a fringe element that simply will not accept programming A, so they have to subscribe to programming C, and that's just part of how it is. But a lot of people will subscribe to programming A. They think this thing is a great idea. It's like, of course I want AI and everything. Alexa's awesome. I want to be able to contact whoever I want to at a whim. We should have an office of pre-crime, right? Before they get to somebody before they think of something bad to do. What's horrible about that? It's like, nothing until they decide what's a crime and what's not,
Right. Like, have you not watched all the dystopian movies? Yeah, totally. Have you not looked at how society already uses the tools that it has?
Totally. We got self-driving cars coming. We got we got basically the first 10 minutes of Wall-E on the way.
Yes. Just prison planet full of trash with a bunch of fat people floating around in space, not even knowing what the hell is going on.
And I bet they thought it was awesome when it first came to them. Like, oh, this is great. And this is awesome. A robot gets to do everything for me. I don't have to do a goddamn thing.
I can just lay and float around on my chair and like eat my popcorn.
It sounds good until you realize you can't do a goddamn thing at that point.
And that you're just decay at that point. Like, part of what you were saying earlier made me want to point out that, you're saying like you get comfortable and then like something else happens, and then it kind of makes you like question again or keep looking further, even if you thought you were done with that. And I think that's part of like the pattern of life and growth, is that you're going along and you get comfortable, and then like something happens to fuck shit up, and it hurts and it sucks. It's like you're suffering in the moment, but it always, for me at least, like it leads me to somewhere even better, where I understand more, and I'm like developing more as a person, and life is actually more rich and varied. And I think that's, the flip of that is that thing is going to be provided for you instantly, and you never have to think, you never have to worry, and you can even be immersed in a simulation if you want and get like literally everything you want. But the price of that, I think, is that you never grow, and you never experience anything real. Like, I'd rather have reality and suffering than this like illusion and never think or suffer a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I hate saying it because I hate suffering, but there's something
I get it, because the cost is too high. It's not just the relief of suffering, because it comes with a price that's too high to pay, which is ultimately your complete in encapsulation in something we can't even begin to understand yet. I feel like so this guy Richard Allen Miller, you ever hear of him?
Mm-mm.
No, okay. I don't even know how to describe him. So he's kind of like, he's ex-military. He's got a couple of books out. One of them called Power Tools, but he used a bunch of mental stuff to train like the first Navy SEALs.
Oh, cool.
So anyway, I heard an interview with him, God, probably 2 years ago, where he was going on about this being the last generation. And you hear that stuff from the Bible people all the time, like, this is the last generation. You think you know what it means, right? It's like, oh, mankind will get burned up or evaporate. It's like, I don't think so anymore. I think this is the last generation, because this is the last generation of how the way things are right now. I think the generation that comes after us will not be us. It'll be so completely different and altered that we might not even recognize that.
Like, it will not be human anymore.
Yeah, entirely possible.
See, and I think there's something like beautiful and crucial in humanity, and that's why we exist, is to try to like find that and manifest that instead of this other thing.
Great. Yeah, look, this other thing already has its claws in
deep.
Yeah,
it's like deeper than people know. I think most people don't even understand like how far AI has gone and where it's already at.
Yeah. I think because we're still in the sci-fi movies from 20 years ago. We're looking at Terminator, and it's like looking at all this other stuff going on. Wow, that'll be interesting, but it'll never happen. I'm like, it's too late. It didn't. The AI came on board and realized it didn't need to wipe us out with a nuclear weapon. It just needed to give us all smartphones.
A smartphone. That's all we need. We're happy. So do you think, because when you say like this thing is, coming to like encapsulate or whatever, it like literally makes me think that, I don't know if you venture here or not, but like that the soul is what they're trying to encapsulate, and that maybe that plays into it, and that's what's like literally in the balance.
I do actually. I got weirder ideas going into that. I almost feel like there's a war going on, and it's been going on for quite some time, and we are just seeing the results of it, and not the actual acts of war that are happening. And I had a dream, I guess, relevant to it, a weird ass dream. This is a few years back, but I dreamt that we were we were walking around, and we were seeing things that looked like fires, a building on fire, a forest fire. What was actually happening is almost like in some other dimension, there were these two sort of alien factors that were at war with each other. And for whatever reason, the illusion was starting to fall apart. And a lot of people in the crowd were like, oh my God, do you see that? Because there were these they're like these manta ray ships and these like, F-22s. They were fighting each other and blowing stuff up. And we'd see the explosions as if they were just like a forest fire or something. But it was really this war that was going on in another realm. And I almost feel like that's a real thing. Like, this war's been going on for some time. And it's almost like the old Prometheus myth, where Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to humans. And maybe the gods want it back, in a sense. And that's the simplest way to put it. But I kind of see it like this, right? So we live in a really, really highly technological world right now. And we look at the past as if it was super primitive. People 1,000 years ago, what were they doing? Building houses with rocks. It's like, how the fuck do you know that they weren't moving that shit telepathically?
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like, so I feel like the technology's been given to us to tame us, to keep us down. And maybe we were like superheroes and badasses a long time ago, and the technology came in a way almost like the fall of man. It's a weird way to look at it, right? But it's
No,
like,
it totally makes sense to me because, like, if you, it's the easiest example is that you don't remember phone numbers anymore, right? And you used to remember many phone numbers, and you had them all at your command, and now you don't. So, like, each bit of technology we get, we can see kind of a degradation of our own skills or abilities again because we're not driven to use them anymore. We don't have that bad thing that's causing suffering that causes us to develop a skill that we need to get past the suffering or whatever.
yeah,
So maybe literally what you're talking about is true, that we like had more powers, but as someone's like, oh, you don't need to like all focus to levitate that rock anymore, just like use this thing.
machine, right? Yeah. So it's almost like the devil, quote unquote, for the biblical devil in the garden that said, "Did God really say?" It was the one that might have handed mankind a technology that then allowed it to disconnect from source.
Mm.
Right? Because in the Bible, it talks about Adam and Eve walked with God. And to me, walk with God is like you're ever present in the source creation. Once you're disconnected from that, what happens? I'm not sure what happens, but I'm sure creating or doing things is going to be a lot harder. So
Yeah.
oh, we have technology here. Use this thing to do this other thing. Meanwhile, at some point, you were capable of doing that because you were constantly connected to source, and now you're not. I mean, I think crazy shit like this all the time. So I'm not like shouting this out into the world. I mean, I am now because it's going on the internet, but
Right. We're
yeah,
safe here.
it's just stuff that goes around in my head all the time. So like, what if technology really is that? Really is what the issue is, which is why things keep getting more and more technologically, you know, complex. So now we have AI, and when we have gene splicing now, and there's the big ruckus about transgenderism. But what happens when we're trans species at that point? You know,
Yeah.
and then I'm sure people would. I'd sign up for bull muscles somewhere or something. Yeah, it's stupid stuff like that. But I
It's
get
true. I mean, even before we had gene splicing and the possibility that we could actually like create ourselves as what partially as whatever animals or whatever we want to do, there were people who would go out. There was a guy who lived in my hometown who tattooed his whole body with like leopard print or something. He got like the teeth installed. He got his ears modified to look like a cat, or
yeah.
I don't even know if I'm getting it right, but he did all of this stuff to try to become cat-like. So if you offer that guy, like, do you want to literally have cat genes? He'd be like, hell yeah.
Totally. I mean, and it wouldn't take anything to do it, and that's why I feel like probably even less than 50 years, probably 25 years from now, won't recognize the world.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, which is I think why there's a big push to redefine personhood.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to call a trans species, transgendered, half AI?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And you're going to have to recognize, I'm sure, robots and AI as people too.
yeah, totally.
Um, it, oh, don't lose it. What was I going to say? Oh, the technology thing. Like, I really, a theme in my own experiences that are weird has been that like technology is its own evil, almost like its own consciousness and has its own agenda. Not technology as the like literal sense of the word, where like this pen is technology, but like electronic circuitry technology is sort of an evil intelligence of its own that has its own agenda. So it kind of like ties in with the stuff that you're talking about. Maybe that's like the original fall of man or something.
Totally. In fact, let's take this train to another stop in Crazy Town, right? So I'm
Yay,
thinking,
I love Crazy Town.
my favorite place to vacation.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so my background is in electronics, so like electronic engineering. Um, so I know a lot about electronics, but what do I actually know? I've never seen an electron.
Oh, true.
So, like, there's, in a way of speaking, there's no way for me to know that it's not literally a magic trick. You know what I mean? How do I know that the pattern of a circuit isn't a sigil?
Yes.
Uh, I don't. Now we have an electrical grid all over the planet. So we have things like, people's paranormal experiences were way different before we had an electrical grid all over the place. Now we have different types of experiences. I feel like maybe this electrical grid has something to do with that. We already know that some of these grid points cause cancers and stuff, so they affect your physical body. How do they affect your other etheric body?
Yeah. Your mental body and your emotional body.
Yeah, we are bioelectric things.
Yes.
Got to be something going on there. I felt like there was a deeper thread to pull on.
Well, there's, like Jack Parsons, and his Babylon Rising stuff, and this is like what created jet propulsion, and spurned like NASA off into its path. And also, I've heard people say that if you look deeply at electronic, and I've never looked, so I don't know, but I've heard people say that if you look deeply at electronics, like circuitry and boards, that there are literally sigils in there that you can go find in like magic, occult books for, summoning entities. So I don't know if that's an accident. I don't think it's an accident that the thing that Jack Parsons designed that burns fuel so efficiently or whatever it is a pentagram.
Right.
And I don't think that any of these symbols are inherently evil either, but I mean, they're probably effective or they wouldn't be being used.
Right. I agree. And it ties back into the archons too, which were electrical in nature.
Are they?
Yeah.
But I don't know enough about the archon.
Well, as far as I know, that they were electrical in nature, electrical beings. So that always perked my ears up. Like, what? Electrical beings? Interesting.
That is interesting. Well, and then how would this like tie in with the electric universe theory?
Yeah, I don't know
about that. I don't either.
Might be there. I mean, this is their universe anyway, right? So the archons. So we didn't exist in the universe without them.
Like we were created.
Right. Yeah. So this would have been their universe from the beginning.
So then it reminds me of Dark City even more. It's like, we put you here. This is your little maze. You do what we want.
Yeah.
Huh.
Totally. Goes like Westworld too, right? With the maze.
With what?
Did you ever see Westworld?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah, it's the same sort of concept. We created you and you're in this little world and you can't get out. Or if you do, it's going to be crazy. That shit's going to be shit you don't even recognize. I love that thing. That actually connects back to what we were saying too, where some people like can't even recognize something if it's not part of their programming. Like in Westworld, when they're shown like a picture of a modern world and they're back in this Western time, they look at it and they're like, well, that doesn't look like anything to me.
Yeah.
They literally can't see it. So that's cool. That's a pretty cool show. All right. So then speaking of all of this possible evil and like the fall of man and electronics as maybe this like grid that's locking us in to this experience, what do you think it is inside of people that can help sort of protect them and promote their well-being?
I think awareness. You got to understand that you, like Yoda said, luminous beings are we, not this crude matter.
Nice.
We look at the physical world and we assume our first assumption is that this is how it is. It's just reality. I mean, maybe not our first assumption. That's probably the first thing that we're taught, because our imaginations are things that are squashed first.
True.
Little kids, that's the first thing, one of the first things they try to teach us, other than like a walk and don't shit on the floor.
Yeah.
Stop imagining things, too much make believe, learn this math or whatever. So we get to accept the physical world as the only world, but it definitely isn't the only world.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, all matter is just energy vibrating at different frequencies, which means that all matter is just energy. So there's no matter even. What I mean? What we think is real and we put our fingers on and touch, in a sense, doesn't even really exist. It's just energy vibrating at a pattern we haven't learned to recognize yet, other than by touching it. So even that as a scientific principle was enough to get somebody to like start questioning, like, wait a minute, what? Yeah. Just pause for a second and realize that everything isn't what it seems to be, appears on the surface.
It's literally, even by scientific standards, it's like 99.999% empty space. Like it's nothing. Yeah. So where are you and what are you if everything around you is just vibrations and nothingness?
Yeah. Where do you even exist? Like where are you really? Where are you? Are you just piloting some bioenergetic suit somewhere? Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like if you ever do get to have an experience like an out-of-body experience, or some people have near-death experiences or things like that, it's like you are forced to account for like, well, you weren't your body then, but you were still you. So what are you?
Right. By our nature, we say, I have a hand. It's my hand. You don't say, I am hand.
True.
Yeah. So it's like there's already a sense that we're almost piloting a vehicle and we're not really we're not this thing, even though,
Yeah.
but society keeps telling us we are. They keep telling us we're too fat or too skinny or too rich or too poor or whatever. Well, never too rich, but too poor. We're not good enough, and society will focus on purely physical
Yeah.
existence, and that's just a fraction of what we are.
And it ties you into that sort of slave mentality too.
Yeah, right.
You're like, I'm this, and I have to deal with all of that. I stabbed myself in the hand this morning accidentally, and it's like a really, really small version of the same sort of experience though, because like I stabbed myself, and my instant reaction was like, my hand is bleeding. I have to stop the hand. I don't know. It was just like reminding me of like, this is just another object that I hopefully will take better care of so that I can keep using it. But it's definitely not me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of blood though.
Oh, cut my hand once. Took 12 stitches to close it up, but it sliced partway through a tendon. And I was like 10, and I went to church with a friend of mine. So I ruined my church clothes, and I was all freaked out because I was holding like pools of blood in there, and it's crazy. We were playing tag. Never play tag in church years, kids.
No, that's how you get 10 stitches in your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it is funny because I stabbed myself and I was like, I'm going to need stitches. Hopefully I didn't cut a tendon and all of these things. And it's actually this like super tiny puncture. I was like very lucky, and it's like nothing, but like, it's like head wounds and hand wounds will just like gush blood.
Yeah, right.
It's crazy. Makes you like think something way worse than what's actually happening is happening. Yeah. But it's all good. So what do you have any practices that you would recommend for people who want to look more deeply at reality and themselves?
There's one like super simple one, and it's just to pause and take a breath and realize that there is never a situation where nothing is happening. You know what I mean? If you just look around and observe, just take a moment, and whatever moment you can, and probably not while you're driving somewhere.
Yeah.
Meeting or something, like put the phone down for a split second and just take a breath and just observe around you and just see what's happening. And that's like for me at least, that was like the first part. It's like, you get bored, you want to be mentally stimulated because we're prone to be mentally stimulated. But once you take that out, you start to realize that there's actually things happening all over the place, and you're just not tuned into it. You don't see it, even if you're sitting on a bus or whatever, waiting at a park bench. You're like, oh, there's a bird, there's a cricket, there's a blade of grass, there's a sunbeam, there's all this stuff happening that you're not observing. So
yeah. And it's all emotion too.
Yeah, I think it's a gateway practice.
Practice.
Yeah, once somebody starts doing that, they'll go deeper on their own. They'll find their own way in.
I like that too, because you have this, especially in our society, this propensity to just like keep filling your time with stuff. Now do this and now do that, and you just keep going. But just that, you just stop and breathe and observe for a moment, like you're saying. I like what that can lead to. Mm-hmm. The patterns it can disrupt, as well as the experiences it can open up.
Yeah.
So who do you think, like, who are you today because of all of these experiences you've had?
Oh man, I'm maladjusted.
Well, that's like that quote, right? That like, it's, I don't know. There's something about like, it's insane to be well-adjusted in a sick society.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So maybe it's actually a good thing. Maybe you're perfectly adjusted.
Some solace in that. But no, really, I feel like it made me a person that's actually, I feel like I handle stress a little better. For practical uses, unless I'm behind the wheel, because then I got bad road rage.
Me too.
But I feel like it's because there's all these things happening and all these it's like a simulation for life where all I want to do is get to that corner, and there's 50 things in the way between me and that corner, and they're all doing random things, and they're all on their phone. Nobody's paying attention, and I'm like, kill me now.
Yeah.
I think for practical use, probably maybe a little, except for that situation, able to deal with stress a little easier, and able to like I silver line a lot of shit. There's just been a lot of bullshit in my life. We barely touched on any of it.
True.
But like nobody would believe it. Nobody would believe this shit was real. If I ever wrote my life story, it'd have to be fiction, because it sounds like I completely made it up. I'm
gonna tell you, I have the same sort of feeling. So this is another one of those things where I feel like the more you talk to people, the more you realize how many people have had And I don't want to say that I'm like comparing because I don't even know what you're talking about, but I
Yeah.
have that same feeling like there's shit I could tell people where they'd be like, no, you're
No
lying.
way, man. You totally made that shit up.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that. And, I feel like, man, like a weird, like deeper connection with, I don't even know what it is, but it's not this house, this place, this whatever, something else, you know?
Yeah. Like, is it something that you could call God, or is it like that's
I
not even the right word?
It might be. I'm a little confused by it because, like I said, I went rogue a few years back, and I haven't fully come back to the place that I started from. I mean, I circled it, because I came back with like a deeper. I don't want to say that word, deeper knowledge, but I'll compare it to this. So, like when I was in religion and stuff before, like I heard you hear a symphony and you hear it played on like a single instrument, and when
Yeah.
I came back to it, I heard 10 or 12 instruments, but I know I'm not hearing the entire symphony. I know
Yeah.
that point, but at least it's a bigger, a better, truer picture than it was before.
Hmm.
It's the best thing I can think of to compare it to.
I love it. Well, I want to ask you about the experiences that you think nobody would believe, but I don't know if you want to share them here.
Oh yeah, I mean a lot of them are just little and random. So like one time I was driving, and somebody flicked a cigarette out of their car, and it went out their window, in my window, landed between my legs, and started my seat on fire.
Shit.
Right. Okay. So that was the thing. Another time I was at work a couple years ago, and one of the coworkers I went in there with, he had there's this tray. We're building a big aircraft part, right? So the parts are relevant, but he had the work order laying on it. I'm with them, and it's weird because I have this like I don't know what I call it. It's like a field of chaos. Like the weirdest random shit will happen in my vicinity, and that is pretty much a regular thing. Yeah. So the work order bounces off. It hits the side of the tray table. It bounces off the floor, falls into the elevator shaft, and goes all the way down the elevator shaft.
Jesus.
Never
You're like,
happened.
you could never, ever make that happen if you wanted to,
Totally never
but
happened
it's going to happen.
since. I don't know how many like near accidents I've been in where I was like literally a half a second away from getting smushed, and the car's parted or something else weird like that happened. I mean, I was in an accident. It was probably 10 years ago. We flipped the car, put it on its roof. My side got crushed in, not crushed in. I don't want to make it sound too dramatic, but my side was the crushed side. My door wouldn't even open, so I got out. Um, got out the back seat, crawled out the back seat. Wife was driving, opened her door, pulled her out, and all that, and walked away literally with not without a scratch. I scratched my thumb on some paint that had peeled up.
Jesus.
Walking out of that right there. And what else? Just a bunch of random stuff like that.
Yeah. But all those experiences are things too where it's almost like, okay, like, are you trying to get my attention? You have it. Like, what do you want? Like, what is this?
Speaking of that, so I was at work again a few years ago in a different place, and a lot of the work was outside because it was I was a test driver, which is probably one of the coolest jobs I had. Um, we spent a lot of time. It was at like an abandoned airport where we had the test track, so we had multiple surfaces you had to stop or accelerate on. So just sitting back there waiting for the brakes to cool, and I see a bird chasing what looked like another giant white bird, not giant, but another white bird about the same size. It wasn't a white bird; it was a pure white moth about the size of my hand. The bird caught up to it, caught it, and then started to eat it. And I'm like, that's the weirdest shit I've ever seen.
That is so weird.
And I started looking up white moths, and I couldn't find any, so I don't know what that was about.
There are some white moths, and it's
Yeah.
weird because white moths are one of my like things.
Yeah. Interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh no, I was gonna say I saw another white rabbit once on the way to work on the side of the road where I'd never saw a rabbit before, let alone a white rabbit. And at the
I was
time,
gonna say rabbits aren't normally white, really. I mean, like domesticated ones will be, but wild rabbits aren't white.
and at the time I was thinking some weird shit about like the future, and I saw a white rabbit, and my first instinct was like, I'm gonna follow it, but I was on my way to work and I chickened out. I'm like, no, I'm gonna get fired if I just follow this white rabbit. So
Oh god, it would have been so cool if you followed it because it probably would have been some weird ass shit.
and I didn't do it.
Next time.
Yeah, totally. Indirectly struck by lightning a couple of times.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, it worked like it. I felt a slight jolt in like a cordless phone I was holding one time. Another time I was hiding out under a bridge and I felt the jolt in my back because I guess it hit the top of the bridge. A small jolt, like static, but
Yeah.
say indirectly shot. So.
Wow. So you've got, see, because I always kind of wonder too, like light can carry information and it's energy and it's information. And so when someone's struck by it and doesn't die, like, did you like get some sort of a,
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Probably, especially since I have this electric thing, you know, like I got a electric field. For a while, I was killing wristwatches. Last maybe 2 months, and that's it.
Jesus. And it's not like a battery thing. It's like they're dead.
They're just gone. Yeah.
They're fried. So I wanted to get back to that too with your electronic anomalies, because you are the first person I've met who has all these electronic anomalies. Like you hear about this from time to time, these people, and I'm like one of them as well, that just crazy electronic shit happens to you that can't be explained. But I feel like coming from you, that would make even more, it'd be even more believable because you actually understand how they work.
Right. Yeah, and knowing that whatever just happened should not have happened. There's no possible way this should interact. I mean, have you ever had the phenomenon with streetlights?
Yes.
They come on for you or go off?
Yes, like constantly.
Yeah.
They're like off and they all come on at once, like right. And then as soon as I'm gone, they'll like go off again. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. Coincidence. I'm sure it's coincidence.
Totally coincidence. So like, what do you think, that we have some sort of like field around us that affects electronics, or do you feel like shit goes through electronics to fuck with us?
Oh, that's a good question. I never really thought of it. I assumed that it was the field. Which, yeah, I feel like it's more the field, because the incidences aren't necessarily meaningful,
malevolent or meaningful. Yeah.
Yeah, or profound. You know, I had a situation where this is back before smart TVs existed, but there was a little keyboard which would mimic a smart TV, and I could never operate it. It would literally never work for me. If I had it on me, it would malfunction every time. I'd take it, hand it to my wife, worked perfectly fine. She's sitting right next to me, worked perfectly fine. But every time I touch it, completely fine.
So fucked up. It's so frustrating. I don't know if people know how frustrating it is. Like electronics work for me most of the time, but what I think I've noticed too, I tend towards the field theory of it, because I think if I'm having strong emotions, it happens more often.
Yeah. I've noticed for me, it's particularly frustration. If I'm frustrated, not just angry, like, oh, I'm so pissed off, but if I'm like feeling that, that blood rising, it's like, man, I'm really getting pissed off about something, then something will mess up. Like I have a compressor in my garage that it won't turn on if I'm just spazzing out. I'll plug it in, it just hits the breaker.
And it's hard, because then if you're going to try to not be frustrated while you're frustrated, but that thing's not working, it's like, oh, it's so fucking hard.
I just developed an ability to walk away from shit. Like, I'll get to it later. So I have all these half projects because the electronics just mess up. And like, as soon as it messes up, I'm like, all right, I'm out.
Yep.
I'll go back to it when it wants to work.
So are you still working in the electronics industry?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to keep putting up with it.
Exactly. It's like, I'm just going to, until it, whatever it shows itself and that power manifests, and I'm finally able to control it.
That would be cool if we could actually like use it for something.
I just don't know what the process is to learn how to do it. So like again, fictions, right? These all sound like fiction, but I accidentally made somebody sick once. You made somebody sick once? Intentionally.
Intentionally.
So behind their back, I was like, broke out in hives. Yeah, I was like, oh shit, man, I'm sorry about that.
Wow.
Randomly, I'm like, but it didn't make sense to me until a couple years later. I'm like, oh my God, I probably did that.
Yeah.
Done that. Shit, it's crazy.
So then like you probably can direct it and use it for something.
Just don't know how. So I started to like, I didn't want to be like a kid who found his dad's gun. So I just try to shut everything down, like, no, don't feel anything. And that didn't work, of course.
No, it's going to come out somehow.
So since then, it's been another sort of learning curve to see if it's a thing that could be switched on and directed and used for something other than just a thing that manifests when you're frustrated, Yeah,
I like that. That, I'm sure meditation can help with that as well, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try to travel down that rabbit hole with you and see what happens. So what are you grateful for in all of this?
Oh man, technically I have to say all of it, good and bad, everything, because you learn from everything, even though there's some stuff that was super difficult to go through and I would not want to go through it again, it's still be cliched, maybe what I am today for whatever that's worth. So a lot of these experiences, again, I got turned into an expert silver liner. It's like,
Right.
oh, at least, I mean, sometimes that gets tiring. So like the last year, like I was talking about with all my wife's health problems, it's like it's fatiguing trying to see the good. It's like, if you have a dozen eggs and somebody steals 8 of them, you're like, oh, well, at least I still have 4. That's annoying. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
why did they steal any at all? I had a dozen. So you deal with that inside your head, trying to be grateful for what you might still have. And it's like a physical workout. The more you use it, the better you're able to do it, and eventually it becomes normal.
Yeah, I like that too, because you do have to also sometimes be angry that the 8 eggs are gone.
Yeah, right.
And like when we were talking about music, I was thinking that like, there is this level of me now where like I can't listen to Lady Gaga anymore. Just like, God, this is filth, but like sometimes I have to listen to Rage Against the Machine because I'm fucking pissed off. And that is what I need to like deal with it and get it out. So like you can't like ignore the negative in life either. But like you're saying, you're gonna like practice gratitude and whatever, it's going to become more natural.
It does. And I think there's a difference between experiencing an emotion and examining the emotion. You know what I mean? So it's like that anger about the person that stole the 8 eggs. At the beginning part of it, you're just angry, but at the end part of it, you're like, okay, so I understand why I'm angry about this, and I don't necessarily need to feel angry about it anymore, even though your anger is valid.
Yes.
It's just the ability, I guess, to slow down the emotional response that you want to automatically get by feeling that shit.
Hell yeah. I think that also connects with that, like trying to control whatever that field is too, because I do think there's a connection between the emotional self and that. So like learning how to deal with our emotions appropriately is, I'm sure, a process that hooks in with that somehow.
Yeah, totally. Because you figure society, right? They just want to squash it. As soon as you feel anything, it's like, right down.
Or they want to be like, trigger it, go, go, go. Okay, now stop.
Negative one, like fear, be afraid. But I guess humans are we naturally prone to threat response? I think I heard that somewhere, read that somewhere. That's why it's always negative. So it's like we'll immediately tune in because it's something that threatens our existence. So it's like, oh, what's that? Somebody got murdered. There's a storm coming. Price of gas is too high. Whatever. We can't tune out because we're like hooked into being threatened. And that's
you're saying we give that like more precedence, like if there's something that's like really happy and inspiring here, but something over here that's like a threat, then we're going to look at that one instead.
Yeah.
That's the natural response. Yeah, I can see that.
That's kind of our normal way of being. But I guess that's our, we're a fused creature. You know what I mean? We have this physical body. I'm not sure where these physical bodies came from. He's comparing to other creatures on Earth. Not quite like, like one of these kids is doing their own thing.
Yeah.
We have the spiritual side of us. So I think the physical bodies, we have to deal with what comes with that. And I think that fear response is part of it, our animal nature is.
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty good training ground to get over it because there's a lot of it here.
Yeah, totally.
How do you go about sharing with other people what you've learned in life and what you've experienced?
I'm sad to say, but I don't share a whole lot. Just my inner circle, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now you're sharing here.
Right. Yeah. Now I am. I've been threatening to write a book.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying I've been threatening to write a book for a couple of years. I think I might do it, but I want to write like a work of fiction in a way. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, you think of it as fiction anyway, even though it's not,
I think it's easier for people to digest it and kind of like appropriate it into their minds if it's presented to them as fiction, even if you end up using all of these experiences that actually happened, And I also think it can fit the plot line and the way that people expect stories to go more seamlessly if you kind of like rearrange it a tiny bit, even though all of the shit happened.
Yeah.
So I think there is something to that. Although if you do go the nonfiction route, I mean, there's plenty of people who want to read real life experiences, especially of very weird things.
Yeah.
I think that'd be cool. Don't you make music?
I do. Yeah, I do. It's mostly instrumental music, and call the music alter ego Dark Side.
Dark Side.
Everybody wants to think it's Star Wars and Darth Vader related. Some people get scared of it, like, ooh, Dark Side, I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah.
But listen, let me explain. So the point of the Dark Side was So we all have a dark side. We all have a dark side. It's cliche, but we all have a dark side, right?
It's true.
You can't ignore it. You have to accept it, not necessarily embrace it, but you have to be aware that it's there. So the dark, light and shadow. You can't really have shadows without light. So the embodiment of the whole dark side was to explore sort of a safe space to explore things that are maybe a little darker, that are a little less, pleasant, whatever.
Yeah. So it has no connection to the comic book thing?
No.
Okay. Because I didn't think it was a Star Wars. I immediately went to the comic book thing because comics have been more present in my life lately. So I was like, I wonder if that was an influence.
Right. Yeah. The dark side character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. So it's just, but they're all welcome at dark side.
Yeah. They all fit in somehow.
I think part of it too, part of what led into that was as you're trying to explore the world and trying to gain those other perspectives. You see these even fictional characters that are villains, like Darth Vader. Oh, clearly he's a bad guy, right? Sure, but to be cliche, what's his motivation? Why does he seem like a bad guy? Maybe there's no bad, well, not no, but there's few bad people out there that know they're doing bad or just doing bad on purpose. They always think they're doing something good. So I want to get in their heads for a little bit and see what are they about, Like, let's explore that with no judgment.
Yes. Yeah, the best bad guys in any story are the ones that when you figure out their motivation, you can relate to them. You're like, shit, I might not have made the same choices as you, but I totally get where you're coming from.
Like, do you ever see The Watchmen?
No, unfortunately, I haven't. I'm a bad person.
Be aware that you will see Dr. Manhattan's big blue dick. So just
okay.
Various times. But the main bad guy, I won't spoil it, but the main bad guy at the end of the movie, you're like, oh shit, that guy makes sense. I get why he would do that. So he's a bad guy. I don't know. Even one of the other characters, one of the ones that gets sort of in trouble early, is a little ambiguous. He's kind of a bad guy, but you see where he's coming from too.
See, and they're not even the anti-heroes. They're like the bad guys, but you still can get it. And it's the same. The best good guys have their dark side at some point too, right? Where you see like, oh yeah, I also fail at being perfect.
Start looking at things and it's like, hey, Superman, he was an alien.
Coming to Earth to be all better than us.
Right.
So where do you think you're headed in life, or where do you kind of hope to end up?
Oh man, end up. I don't know. I thought I knew. I don't anymore. The world's getting so weird. I kind of want to go backwards. I almost just want like like I'm not a farmer, right? So I don't want to farm. But if I could park myself on some land somewhere, and just be happy with life and have a bonfire, I think I'd be all right.
Yeah.
Feel all right. It's like I have no motivation left to really pursue much, in the world.
Right. You're not looking for like a new career or a big kind of move into some sort of, I don't know, economic or political move, but you're just
part of me is because like who doesn't want to be a billionaire, right?
Right.
Take it. I mean, of course, but the primary motivator, I would be a billionaire just so I could buy my own island and build that little house and just be separate on like a hermit out there by myself. I don't want to be by myself, but that you get what I'm saying, right?
You could create your little crew of people who also live there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I want to win the lottery for sure. But barring that, I think I'm going to end up on a little property somewhere with a bonfire as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan to me right now.
It's pretty cool. So is there anywhere where people can go to find more of you?
Yeah, but I haven't really updated any of this stuff in a while. So there's reversetheflow.org. That's the home of Dark Side Studios. There's a little bit of music there. That's really it.
I love that name, Reverse the
Flow. Reverse the flow. At the time, I was like, let's reverse everything. If there's any bad, let's turn it to good. If there's anything outgoing, let's start bringing it in. I'm still kind of waiting for that, but yeah, that's really the only website. I will update it soon because I just had to renew it, and I realized, man, like I said, this last year's been crazy, so I haven't updated anything on there for a while. But I'm due to drop some new info.
Awesome. Well, I definitely hope that the past few years' flow is reversed for you and that things go nothing but good and take you to beautiful places. Is there any kind of last words that you want to throw out to people listening?
Probably the same stuff I always put out. Like, remember that you are gods and goddesses, all of you. Little G, but still, just remember that. You know, don't let the world, don't let them get you. Don't let them get you. Whoever they are, don't let them get you. You're greater than anything that's fucking with you right now. So.
Hell yeah. Never forget that. That is the whole point, is they want you to forget that. So obviously even just knowing it is a very important piece.
Yeah, agreed.
Awesome. Well, fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. This has been your electric, concentric, analog dose of wisdom, according to my man, Jeff. Jeff, thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So some people spend their lives wishing they could experience something deeper, something more profound, something that could convince them that other realms exist or higher level entities are watching us all progress on this giant rock in endless space. Other people know the truth, have had the experiences, and realize that it's not always wise to go peering into the abyss, because it usually tends to look back at you when you peer at it. Whether you've merely glanced toward the strange, stared your whole life at the weird, or fallen straight down to the depths and climbed back out again like our friend Jeff here, you do get to choose your own adventure, and it's always up to you. Just remember, choose wisely, and as always, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.
Affirmative.